morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever it is you are tuning in from. I am Gabriella Fenton. I'm the Marketing Director at ImpactQA, and I would like to welcome you to today's insightful webinar on GenAI and the future of business, transforming AI testing and test management with advanced tools. As businesses increasingly evolve through AI and digital transformation, leveraging generative AI has become crucial to staying competitive. In this session, we will explore how GenAI is reshaping the landscape of AI testing and test management. GenAI offers immense potential for automating complex processes, improving decision-making, and enhancing software quality. I'm also very Firo from Psychon. Together, we'll dive into key questions around how AI is revolutionizing the world of testing and quality assurance. So if you guys would like to take a moment, introduce yourselves, now's your time.
Sure, good day. I'm Gregor Shapiro, currently lead product engineering at Psychon, but my background is in kind of the ad hoc CTO to a lot of the startups, work with a number of VCs that bring me in to modernize the tech stack of companies that they're investing in, as well as revolutionizing their products into something that users can use, and reducing costs essentially.
Everyone, this is Gaurav here, Gaurav Pandey. I am working as a senior QA manager with ImpactQA for last 2.5 years now. Prior to that, I have worked with Accenture, Infosys, and a couple of more startups. And my experience is more than 18 years and primarily on the QA side of things. Worked on multiple domains, finance, telecom, logistics, e-commerce, and retail. So welcome again, everyone, and thanks for joining the webinar.
I think it looks like Gabriella might be facing some technical issues from what I can see. But Gaurav, I think we can start by kind of diving into one of the questions that Gabriella had asked us earlier on.
Sure. So right. Thanks, Greg. So one of the question which Gabby asked me earlier, that was, what are the key differences between traditional QA methodologies and AI-driven methodology? So if you ask me, the key difference between the traditional QA methodology and AI-driven is in the level of automation as well as the intelligence involved. The traditional methods rely heavily on the predefined test cases as well as manual execution. But if we compare that with AI, over here, the users can automatically generate the test cases based on data analysis and the pattern which will be learned from application under test. It also helps to reduce the effort which is involved in the maintenance, as system can automatically make changes on the cases as per the code changes. Also, it helps in faster execution because we are automating most of the repetitive tasks. So in a nutshell, the level of automation and the intelligence is the driving factor which differentiate between the traditional QA methodologies and the AI-driven testing.
Yeah, I would agree, and I think from an executive standpoint, AI-driven testing, as well as I kind of look at it from a broader picture, engineering aligns very, very well with several strategic priorities that a lot of businesses are dealing with today. I kind of put them into three groups, right? Faster, shorter, cheaper, right? Shorter time to market, faster software release cycles, reduce maintenance costs by automating test creations along with code reviews, execution, allowing continuous innovation, and which again at a cheaper price tag. We look at it also from looking at a couple of the platforms, applications that are out there, leveraging AI applications such as like an Amazon developer queue or a developer tool like a Cursor, right, which enables predictive defect analyzations and also self-healing automations. Along with what I like best about it is, the real-time analytics. One of the things that I was actually working with the ImpactQA team this week is on the QA user stories, right? How do you take when the UI changes, right? The self-healing capabilities, where AI can detect changes in UI or logic and update the test scripts automatically, which essentially reduces the effort by the engineer. One thing that we all know in engineering, right, is that change is something that constantly happens. So that's one of the big things, in my opinion, where AI plays a key role in today's world, and will continue.
Sure. Thanks, Greg. And on the same note, the other like query which came to me was, how does AI powered test automation differ from a script-based automation tool like Selenium? So being from a QA background, I can easily say any script-based tool, be it like Selenium, it just like rely mainly on the pre-written scripts to automate the repetitive task. Whereas the AI-powered test automation tool, it will utilize the ML, machine learning, to adapt to changes under AUT, and thereby allowing for self-healing scripts. If there is any change in the UI, it will like detect that, and it will self-heal, which essentially means it is learning and evolving as it works through it. Or you can say it's dynamic in nature. And moreover, as you were just saying, it also helps us to do in the code review. We have a lot of tools in the market, AI tools, which help us to do the code review, which is still not available on the traditional automation tools like Selenium and all. So that makes AI automation tool way ahead than the script-based automation tools.
And also, right, consistency. One thing, the Selenium tools, automated test cases, or even manual test cases, right? You can have the best user stories in the world, right? But it's up for the humans' interpretation, right? So by driving it using AI, ML, you can actually predict the test case. You can predict the outcomes almost, right? And it captures the information. So, if one human learns one thing, the other one might have not picked it up. So it creates more of a knowledge gap, what I would call, which I think you don't have with more of an AI test cases in that case. So, yeah.
Right. And the next query is on the same lines, wherein the folks want to know what are some practical use cases when we talk about AI, which can help us to improve engineering and or the QA workflows. So as per my experience, I can share some of the practical use cases of AI in QA. The first one being automated the test case generation. As you were also mentioning, that AI can analyze the functional requirements and automatically generate comprehensive test cases. So that's one of the key from AI. Second, which I just talked about a bit earlier, is the self-healing capability in the test scripts. So AI can automatically update the test scripts when minor UI changes occur. Thereby, it helps to reduce the maintenance overhead. We don't have to go in and do it like manually. It just do it on its own. And like furthermore, as you also like mentioned, Greg, about the predictive, capability of it. So it helps by basically analyzing the historical bug data or even the code commits. AI can predict to some extent where the bugs are likely to occur, allowing proactive validation on such areas. So it's always good to find bug earlier in the SDLC. And we even have few AI tools in the market which can compare the screenshot of an application across different like browsers as well as devices like mobile or web. So that also helps us and save us a lot of effort. And obviously automation of regression, which is like the crux of it for any QA person. So AI can automatically execute the regression whenever any code change occur. That will ensure that the new features are not breaking the already existing functionality, and which is very, very important. If we are building any new thing, the existing thing should not break and it should work as it is. So these are some of the practical use case which I can think of from the QA perspective for AI.
Yeah, and I think it's not only from a QI perspective, from a QA perspective. It goes back to what I was saying, right, where AI can perform intelligent exploratory testing, right, versus a human doing it when it comes to traditional regression testing, right? It can learn from those patterns, but I think it goes beyond just UI, right, and goes to AI-driven or prompt-based engineering, right? It comes efficiency. It also enables business agility, cost optimization, and with the right guardrails, it improves your risk management, while at the same time supporting faster, safer, and more intelligent software development life cycles. It just depends on, I think there's a lot of hesitation often by developers, whether it be on the QA or engineering side, to use AI or to for fears of it perhaps replacing them.
Right.
But I actually find it, and I try to encourage my teams to do this more and more. I find when they use AI as an assistant, right, for lack of better words, when they're developing something, it really improves the code quality. It allows the teams to work faster. It really allows them to focus not so much on the syntax of the code, but really the logic and the quality, right? So where AI isn't really that good is in your business logic, right? It doesn't know your business, right? These large language models know something general, but they really don't know the specifics to what you're trying to develop. So it allows the engineers to really focus on that, the architecture, the logic, and things of that nature, versus focusing on, did I get the right comma in place, or am I using the right GET request, or should it be a Boolean, right? Should it be, what type of character should I be using, right? So there's huge benefits to it. Again, I think it is a little more difficult. I think people are a little more hesitant to use it because of all the fear mongering that's going around in the industry today, where AI is going to replace engineers and testers.
Right. No, that's a very valid point, Greg, and thanks for sharing that. And the next query, it is related to the same point which you just iterated. It says, in your experience, what is the most significant challenge companies face when they are transitioning from traditional methods to AI driven, and how can a leadership help overcome these challenges, right? So just to pick from where you left, the most significant challenge, what I feel the company face when they are transitioning from the traditional like testing methods to AI driven, is first, resistance to any change. Secondly, gap in skill set. And again, it could be due to multiple reasons. One of which could be, the lack of like trust, or I would say understanding of AI, which might result in the misunderstanding, as you pointed, that AI is something which will, like take our jobs away, which is not the case at all, right? And to add to it, skill gap is also one of the key reason which adds fire to it. as folks are not aware, like, I mean, really about AI, the teams, they may lack expertise in AI, ML, so they are a bit hesitant, in just adopting to all these new like technologies. So, I mean, these are, like majorly two key like issues or the challenges which company face. And if you ask me how, as a leader or a manager, we can help to overcome that, I would say, there are few steps which we can take. Again, every leader has their own way to handle it. But if you ask me at a high level, we can try some of these things. Maybe we can have a culture of continuous learning wherein we invest in the upscaling, rescaling of the teams, help them to, learn the AI and automation skills, encourage the programs for certifications and all those workshops. And once we have a bit of understanding in the team, I would say we should not just go big bang and just try to pick a small, like account and do a POC to just see, how that is really helping and what is the ROI out of it. It should not be that, we just pick a complex one and start, implementing on it. And obviously, I mean, like last but not the least, we should try to address the job security concern. Just try to have a communication with the team. Just try to pass on the message that, as you pointed out, AI is there to enhance, and it's not there to replace us, right? It can help us handle the repetitive tasks, freeing up the QAs so that they can focus on more on the exploratory and the strategical and the critical task, right? So these are, some of the means which through which a leader or a manager can try to mitigate some of these, concerns which team might have when they are trying to move from the traditional to AI driven testing.
Yeah, I think, Gaurav, I think I agree with everything you said, and I'll just add that as the organizations get bigger, those challenges get bigger and harder to transition. Right? So,
right.
If you think of like the bigger the ship in the ocean, right, trying to make a turn, the harder it is, right? Which is why a lot of organizations that you see adopting AI, right, and taking the huge risks are smaller organization, right?
Right.
There's less resistance to change the smaller they are. The larger the organizations, the more politics are involved, the more issues there are. And yeah, the only way to deal with those issues, like you mentioned, right, is upskilling and reskilling teams, right? It goes towards the security of it. I was just at the AWS Innovate conference 2 weeks ago, and New York Life was one of the presenters there. And this is a company that was, over 138 years or something like that old. And one of the challenges they had was their sales agents and people that worked in it were also, kind of stuck in the old way of doing things. And here you have an initiative, which is basically, that came from the top down. Hey, we need to move into AI. So the way they approached this task was really investing very heavily in AI training, knowledge training for their staff and users, not only the developers, but also the people, the end users that were going to be using the product that they're developing. Encouraging, cross-functional learning between, different teams, be the developers, AI engineers, data scientists, and again, salespeople, right? Because they all play a different task. And shifting the mindset from replacement to augmentation, right?
Exactly.
So it's a more difficult. I think that the mindset piece is a little bit more difficult to shift. But again, if we upskill, we reskill teams, we reassure our teams, because they have knowledge that AI can never replace, right? They have legacy knowledge of a business and the
Right.
workflow. But shifting that knowledge, right, that AI is going to augment your workflow versus replace you, is very important, right? And the other piece is, how do you communicate with AI, right? Because there's a lot of workshops out today, Google and so on and so forth have workshops out there for prompt-based AI or prompt-based engineering AI. So I think the more you enable your teams, right, the clearer the vision becomes. And you said something at the end, which I agree with wholeheartedly, which is, running some pilots, running some POC projects, right? Implementing AI, in, what I would say a small, low risk project, before scaling it across the entire organization. Measuring tangible benefits of it, right? And slowly, what I think those actions will allow you to do is to build confidence within the overall organization, right? And
absolutely.
Yeah, and then the last thing is just ensuring seamless tool integration, right? Don't have something that's completely out of whack, right? Something completely different. And I think this is where, not I'm not a spokesperson for Amazon or anything like that, right? But I think that's where Amazon, I think, is doing an incredible job, really, with their generative AI offering, right? Of how they're, like the Amazon Developer Queue, how they've kind of developed it, Bedrock, how they allow you to scale and fine tune your LLM models, right? I think that's where you're going to see more of these AI or cloud providers go to, because that's what's going to allow leadership, executive leaderships and these organizations to develop that trust, right? And develop that migration from, the traditional work model to more of a, augmented AI model as well, and realize savings that this has.
Right. Well, thanks, Greg. Thanks for sharing those inputs. The next question is really interesting. We all know that AI needs data. I mean, that's what AI needs as input. So the question says, what are the cybersecurity implications of integrating AI into the test management process, especially regarding sensitive customer or business data? So let me try to answer it in into bits. So we all know, like integrating AI into a test management, it will bring us numerous, benefits such as faster defect detection, predictive analysis, and optimized test execution. But it also, introduces significant cybersecurity implications that every organization must proactively address. And especially, when we are dealing with sensitive customer or the business data. As we all know, AI models, they rely on vast amount of data to learn and make any sort of prediction. And if this data includes any PII, I mean the personally identifiable information, or any financial records, or any proprietary business, so it becomes very, very critical. And in case of any breaches, it can cause both monetary as well as loss of your value as well, right? So it is very, very important. Now, to answer to how to handle it, again, I am not a cyber security expert, but based on my QA experience, I can share some inputs here which can help to minimize any of such breaches or any of such instances where we have the data leakage. So and these are based on my experience, which we have even implemented in some of our accounts. So first was applying the data masking techniques, wherein we are ensuring that sensitive information is protected or masked, so we don't really have the real data on the test environment. It is more of a mass data. So that basically helps to ensure that we don't have any sensitive information out there in the QA world. On the same, we can even limit the amount of sensitive like data which is stored, and ensure that if in case we have any such, it is encrypted. And we even used to like regularly audit the systems to ensure that they are compliant with all the data protection laws, like your HIPAAs, your the GDPRs and all. So that also helped us to ensure that we are compliant across geographies. The other thing which we did, we implemented a role-based access, right? So that helped to ensure that only authorized person has access to any sort of sensitive data. And again, it helped to minimize any sort of like data breaches. And we can even enforce an additional MFA. Like these days we have the two layer security in like most of the applications, right? So that's one way of doing it. We can have an additional layer of MFA to ensure and specifically for any data which we are accessing, right? And of course, encryption is one thing which I already talked. So any data which is out there, it should be encrypted, both in storage as well as when we are sharing it, or sharing it from one system to other. So that will also help us to like prevent any unauthorized access. Again, I would reiterate, I am not from a cybersecurity background, so I know there are more refined and more polished techniques out there, but these which I just shared are based on my experience, which we implemented in some of our QA accounts. So by using these, I'm pretty much sure that if we should be able to minimize some of these like concerns related to data.
Yeah, I think I everything you mentioned is I think right on point, and implement all of this kind of encompasses in the implementation of an AI governance and compliance model, right?
Right.
There's a bunch of standards out there today, SOC 2, ISO, and IST, right? And all of those standards, I think if you look at it, kind of enable you. And data security was an issue before AI, and it's going to be an issue during AI and after AI, right? Data privacy,
Right.
data security is a huge topic, and I think that it's you see some of these big corporations who invest millions and millions of dollars.
Right. And we have a specialized folks and specialized set of people, who work through the cyber security aspect of things.
Yeah. So, like I said, I agree with everything. Encrypt your data at rest, right? Encrypt your data. Focus on data first, right? Because data, at the end of the day, is a differentiator. It goes to something that Gabby had asked us earlier. What advice would you give other businesses looking for to start integrating AI into their test management process, right? It kind of goes into that,
Right.
into that question, right?
Right.
So I think I think I think one of the key things here is that, and how it goes into the security piece, right? Is there's a quote out there called "Discipline equals freedom," right? It's a quote from a very good book, Extreme Ownership. You have to approach generative AI with a mindset, right? It's not like you've worked before, right? It's a different mindset. You have to work backwards from the business outcomes. You have to really understand the needs. You have to understand your customers. You have to understand your data. You have to focus on the data as that really is your differentiator, right? This means that going with the security focus, future-proofing your data management, understanding that things will change, right? You don't want to redo all of your architecture, all of the work and the hard, that you've done, just to re-platform or even be tied to a single technology or an LLM. I think we have to all embrace AI.
Right.
I don't think anyone wants to be left behind. But if you establish, good governance, good guardrails, you can let your teams innovate and not be in the way of innovation. You can help your teams, culturally change. It's harder, as I mentioned earlier, for large corporations. I think it's forced to look, not just at the POC problem, but also at the fundamental organizational shift. I know it kind of went a little bit all over the place, but I think, when you talk about security, it's a much bigger topic than just
exactly. Yeah.
security itself.
Agreed. Okay, I
All
can
right.
see the.
And
Sorry, Greg.
I think we're at our time. I don't know if Gabby is back or not.
Yeah. Hey, let me chime in here real quick. So, great insights, you guys. Thank you so much. But before we do conclude this webinar, we did get a couple questions from some of our attendees. The first one being, what are the security considerations when using Gen AI testing tools?
I think, it's not just Gen AI testing tools. I think the security considerations apply when using any Gen AI tools, right? And it goes to what I spoke about earlier, right? Having the right governance, right? The encryption of data, understanding where data is stored. I oftentimes hear, when I work sometimes with startups, I oftentimes hear, oh, I'm coding this in ChatGPT, or I developed this website using ChatGPT, or I developed this website using Claude, or I've developed this UI using something, right? And the problem with that is that's not really considered an enterprise grade product, right? It's good to kind of get some POCs to knock around some ideas, right? But it's not a secure product. So it's the same, right? It's not just when it comes to QA. It's really understanding your data, encrypting the data, making sure that you comply with any governing bodies like a GDPR, right? And secure your customers' data, essentially, when you're doing it.
Great. And then our second question was, what is the scope of AI-driven QA in data and analytics applications?
Can you repeat that question again?
Yeah. What is the scope of AI-driven quality assurance in data and analytics applications?
What is the scope of it? I think there's a lot of scope. That's what AI is good at, right? Is data. If you look at the Gartner kind of gave their bell curve of kind of what generative AI functionality is kind of passing what they call the hype cycle and are now in kind of the slope of enlightenment or trough of disillusion, right? You look at your generative enabled virtual assistants and your generative AI workflow accelerators. So those are the two areas when it comes to engineering tools that are kind of starting to gain what I call they're areas where you're actually starting to see people using these products or using applications that have these concepts in them. So I think there's AI is great with data, right? And it can infer and it can make different suggestions, right? With data a lot better than a human being can.
Right.
Awesome.
Gaurav, if you have anything to add on that one.
No, I think you have covered it up. Yeah, I mean, I just want to add on the last point that it will help us to make predictions based on the data. I mean, again, from a QA point of view as to which area is more defect prone, so we can focus our execution on that and just try to uncover as much bugs as possible. So predictive analytics is one of the key for AI, which is heavily dependent on data. Sorry, Gabby, you were saying something. I missed that out.
No. Those are some great insights. Is there anything else you guys would like to conclude on before we wrap this up?
I think you got to lean into AI. I think don't get left behind, because it's not a fad. It is rapidly evolving. So, and there's tons of tools out there to learn for free and understand it more. It is going to become, part of our everyday life. Whether you're engineering or QA, or just calling someone for help, from a local, electrical or water company, right? It's definitely going to be something to use in our everyday life. We use it today, by the way. I don't know, how many people use Alexa or, Siri or Google, right? That's a variation of AI, right? Sitting on a large language model with tons and tons of data.
Right. I mean, even if you do any shopping on Amazon, right? I mean, you see the search history based on your past shopping stuff, right? So that's again machine learning out there. So I mean, as you rightly said, there are n number of practical use cases, right? I mean, it's not, we can just like pinpoint few. It's almost everywhere, and we have to embrace it. We should not be running away from it. It is for it is there for us to help. I mean, that we should always try to use it and make our life more easy, and not try to run away from it.
Great. Awesome. Well, with that being said, that wraps up our main discussion today. I want to thank Gaurav and Greg for sharing their valuable insights to how GenAI is revolutionizing testing and test management. Thank you for everyone who joined us today. If you have any further questions or would like to continue the conversation, please feel free to reach out to us. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day, afternoon, evening, wherever you may be. And we hope to see you at the next webinar.